This week on the Brain Fitness Podcast, I'm absolutely thrilled that our next guest is New York Times bestselling author Dave Asprey. Dave has been very influential in my career. I first learned about lion's mane from Dave in one of his books, and I learned about Aniracetam, which I recently published a paper in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease about the benefits of Aniracetam and helping reduce the accumulation of amyloid plaque in the brain. Dave has been a tremendous influence on me. He's got a new book out, Heavily Meditated, which I highly recommend that you get. It's $28 on Amazon. Well worth it. And so here's my interview with New York Times bestselling author Dave Asprey. I'm so excited for our next interview. This is someone who's been of tremendous help to me in my personal journey on health and wellness. It's actually really affected how I take care of my brain, my morning routine, and even affected papers that I've published in scientific journals. This is, of course, Dave Asprey, four-time New York Times best-selling author, and he's the guy who created the biohacking movement. And then personally, Dave, as we talked about off camera, you actually got me interested into lion's mane, which is something that I've helped share with tens of thousands of people, probably 50,000 people at this point. And you got me interested in Aniracetam, which I recently published a paper in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease about that, and Aniracetam being able to help reverse Alzheimer's disease in clinical trials. So thank you so much for your influence on so many millions and millions of people, Dave.
The fact that you did the amount of work it takes to write a paper on Aniracetam, if people listening don't know about this, Aniracetam is a wonderful nootropic. It's the only fat-soluble member of the racetam family. And I've been on it for 25 years because it increases memory I/O. And people say, how can you write all these books and do all this stuff that you do, run 9 companies? And I'm like, well, it helps to have a memory that works better than baseline because I upgraded it. And I wrote about it in my big brain book, which is called Head Strong. And so few people kind of got it. It's neuroprotective. And it's because Big Pharma made it 50 years ago, and then it's off-label, so they just want to sell you something that doesn't work now. But you're the only person I know who's written a journal article, so that's impressive. Thank you. Everybody should know about this, especially if you're going to get surgery or something that could risk your brain.
We recently gave it. We have a clinic where we're reversing Alzheimer's in our patients. We gave it to a patient who went in for serious neck surgery. She was under general anesthesia for hours, and we gave it to her for the month after, and she bounced right back. And you know how bad general anesthesia can be, especially the elderly.
Wow.
And so I also bring it to my Burning Man camp. So I like to give my Burning Man camp during build week. I like to give them Aniracetam to help them. So Dave, you look fantastic. You basically haven't aged since I started following you 7 years ago. How old are you? And I'd love to hear about your skincare routine and how you keep yourself so young looking.
Well, I've been in the longevity movement for 25 years. I started attending and then soon running a longevity nonprofit group when I was 26, and all the members were 70 or 80. And I learned from the 2 generations ago of the leaders in longevity. That's what let me start the biohacking movement, which is basically rebranded longevity. Because let's face it, the things that make old people young make young people powerful. So it's the same tool set, different goals. And that's why, the biohacking conference is coming up here May 28th. We had 4,000 or so people planning to attend in Austin. And it's what our elders did from 30, 40 years ago, just continuously building on the shoulders of giants. And so what do? I used to weigh 300 pounds, and I've done everything you can for longevity, got rid of the chronic fatigue, fixed all the brain stuff, and upgraded it and all. Skin is the hardest one. So number 1 is diet. I have not eaten seed oils in 15 years. I just don't do it. And I eat mostly saturated fats and some monounsaturated fats. And I don't add seed oils to my diet, eat the occasional nut or something, but not even a lot of those. So less inflammation, less oxalates, less omega-6. Those are just critically important. I also have had stem cells in every joint in my body and on my face multiple times. And about 2 months ago, I had 28 square inches of extra skin from when I was fat taken off my face. Wow. So there's a picture on Instagram. I actually had a fistful of fat, like the size of a passport cover on each side of my face of just extra obesity skin. I could pull it like a chipmunk. So I actually just removed that. Kind of, you cut your fingernails when they grow, and if you lose 100 pounds, you're going to have some extra skin. So I got that done. But the quality of my skin is just really smooth. And I do a bunch of the stuff that I talk about on my show. I do peptides. I also do topical things that increase mitochondrial function. Melatonin, methylene blue. I like OneSkin. I like Oral Wellness makes a glutathione thing. Young Goose makes some cool stuff. Timeline makes some cool stuff. I just mix it all together and slap it all on there.
Do you like copper peptides on the skin?
Yeah.
And then methylene blue, what's your dose on methylene blue? I've been looking this up. A lot of people are talking about it. Andrew Huberman talked about this on a podcast. And then the research I've read, it's not really clear on what the right dose is for humans. I've seen as low as 2 milligrams a day, as high as 10 milligrams a day. What do you think about this?
Well, the first people starting to use it, methylene blue, we started using it maybe 1999-ish, 2000-ish. And it was a paper on a site called Longevity, which used to be called the Immortality Institute. So these are like the very early nerds online, kind of like you have the low carb trolls like beating on each other. This is like longevity trolls beating on each other a long time ago. And we talked about it then, and it was very hard to get. And we started with, 1 drop diluted because we were kind of scared. Even though we used it surgically, nobody knew, but the mechanisms were in place. And since then, the recommended dose has gone up and up. Problem with methylene blue is if your mitochondria are working really well, they're not stressed, it's probably not going to be beneficial for you. The other problem is it's an MAO inhibitor, which means it has antidepressant effects at larger doses. So you got people going, my mitochondria are fixed, I feel so good. I'm like, no, you're on an old line antidepressant, which is why I feel so good. And if you combine it with psychedelics, you can get serotonin syndrome, which is actually dangerous. So it's good for people whose mitochondria don't work. And the dose probably isn't the same for everyone, depending on your goals, depending on how well your mitochondria work. I tend to use it a couple times a week, and I'll take a dropper full, which is 10 drops or so. But I would do it before I'm doing red light therapy. And when I put it on my face, it's enough to not look like a Smurf. You have a tiny...
Oh, you actually put it on your skin?
And topically, yeah. There's actually studies showing methylene blue increases collagen thickness when you do that, especially if you combine it with light therapy. So I have some in I mix a bunch of stuff in a little bottle, shake it up, put a couple drops of methylene blue in there. And then I'll do the True Light therapy on my face after that. And True Light's company started a while ago for red light therapy.
And then what do you think of NMN? Dr. David Sinclair from Harvard's been really bullish on this. It's now hard to get in the U.S., but I was in China. I was in Hong Kong. It's in the CVS in Hong Kong, but you can't get it anywhere in the U.S. At least it's hard to find. What's your thought on that?
Well, we've known about NAD for a very long time in the longevity field. So you go back to the 90s when I was first learning this, and we were taking niacin or niacinamide, right? And these are very common B vitamins. And these are precursors. And then the first papers came out on NR, nicotinamide riboside, which works maybe better depending on which pathways are blocked.
I would like to thank our sponsor, Heavily Meditated by Dave Asprey. This is the new book by New York Times bestselling author Dave Asprey. In this book, you are going to learn how to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease naturally, how to lower stress and anxiety naturally, and how to improve your memory and even improve your sleep. This book is only $28 on Amazon, so I recommend you get it. And if you want to get a copy of this for free, you can go to robertlove.net and buy some of my Roar Lion's Mane. Right now, we're giving a copy of this book away for free, so you can get this on Amazon for $28, or go to robertlove.net and get some of my Lion's Mane. And right now, for a special time, you get a free copy of Dave Asprey's book, a physical copy of Dave Asprey's book, when you buy my Roar Lion's Mane.
I've also done intravenous NAD drips, which are really kind of rough to do. So
those are very painful.
Yeah, they're intense. There's a way to turn off the intensity, though. But the big issue is if you raise NAD, you will raise CD38. CD38 is an inflammatory part of we'll call it cell metabolism. And CD38 sucks up NAD way more than your mitochondria do. So if you don't block CD38 and you're doing NMN or NR or anything else, it doesn't really work because you feel great for 6 weeks, then inflammation starts to go up. And I did experience this and I didn't know why. So you can get Qualia NAD has some blockers in it. And there's a couple other brands out there that are designing next generation NAD therapeutics. So I wouldn't worry about getting NMN versus NR. It's legally absurd that NMN is not available in the US, but hey, it's legally absurd the way Big Pharma has corrupted the government. So there's that.
That we can't get peptides. Oh my gosh. I mean, the idea that peptides were harder to get during the pandemic they should have made peptides very easy for us to get, as well as vitamin C and zinc and so forth. Instead, those things were hard to find during the pandemic, and they just told us to buy our alcohol, buy our sugar as we were checking out, stay afraid of your neighbor, and don't hug anyone, and that's going to keep us healthy during the pandemic. And it did the exact opposite.
You know, I just feel like it should be as hard to get any pharmaceutical drug as it should be to get peptides. So if they want to make it hard to get peptides, it has to be at least that hard to get their products, right? Or maybe we can make so anyone can buy whatever they want without needing a permission slip from daddy. And I've had enough of people using regulations to make drugs expensive. I don't do that anymore. I buy all my drugs from overseas.
Yeah, I think the rise in consciousness, we're tired of these regulations that impair our health and cost us money and just are red tape to slow down progress. It's really ineffective.
Yeah. Most regulations are optional.
So let's talk about your book. You have a new book coming out. It's about meditation, heavily meditated. Great title. Play on heavily medicated. So tell me, Dave, why write a book on consciousness? Aren't there enough types of books out here?
There's like 100,000 books on meditation. There's books from the 13th century with step-by-step instructions for cave meditation in Sanskrit. So it's not really a book on meditation. It's a book on altered states. And about 10 years ago, I got really serious about neuroscience, and I started a neuroscience company based on the 15 years of EEG work that I'd done on my own brain. I wanted to have like a Formula One race car mechanic, but for my brain. And this company is called 40 Years of Zen. And I've had more than 1,000 entrepreneurs and CEOs and celebrities and athletes come through for 5 days at a time. And we look at the brainwaves and teach them a specific form of meditation that is science-based. And what it does is it allows you to go into an altered state, and the altered state turns off triggers permanently. Because what I learned, and I've traveled the last 20-something years, while I developed all this stuff for biohacking and longevity, I was also in shaman school, and I went to the Andes, and I went to the Himalayas, and I studied in monasteries and with gurus, and I've kind of had this a little bit underground spiritual side to what I do. I went to Peru in 1999 to do ayahuasca, and I went down there, and they're like, "You're white." When I asked for it, I said, "Yeah, I know." And they said, "No, it's not for tourists. You won't like it." And I said, "Look, I've done my research. I know what I'm interested in," and I did find someone and had an experience, but.
How was that? How was that experience? I know a lot of people in the United States are just hearing about ayahuasca and are very interested.
I mentioned ayahuasca in my first book and in the dawn of the biohacking movement. I kind of put that in as little proof points. Say, guys, like I'm doing spiritual stuff, even though most of what I talk about is nutrition and red light and butter and coffee and all the stuff that's edgy enough for most people. The experience for me was good, but the most magical and important thing that happened was I finished earlier than the other person I was doing it with, and I felt great. And I said, "I'm going to go for a walk." And the shaman looked at me and he goes, "Do not go anywhere." And I said, "Well, I'm fine. I'm like saying one leg, touching my nose. I'm not high anymore." And he looked at me like I was a total idiot. And he goes, "Dave, do you see that circle of stones I put out there?" I said, "Yeah." Because those are not to keep you in. They're to keep other people out and other things out. If you cross those stones, things will stick to you. And then I'm going to have to clean you off, and it's going to take a lot of time, and I don't want to do that. So having also trained with shamans, I am not a shaman, but I know a few things. He wasn't lying. And that's how it works. So Aya uniquely opens you up in a different way, and you better have a good shaman who's got firewall skills. I think Aya can install malware if you're with someone who doesn't know what they're doing. That said, it can be really healing and potent, and I know a lot of people have had good experiences. I also know some other influencers. There's a guy out there who's like, "I've done it 87 times, bro." And it's like, when are you going to know it's not working? Right. So like it's a very potent substance. I've done it twice in my life. And in Heavily Meditated, I treat meditation as a technology, and all of the other technologies allow you to choose your altered state for a specific goal. They're all in the book. So what works better than meditation? Well, at the most extreme example, if you spend 5 days at 40 Years of Zen with my team in Seattle, you will have the same brainwaves as someone who does about 20 to 40 years of daily meditation practice. So 5 days, intense work every day, running the reset process. It's about $20,000 to go to spend that week with my team. And it's all in. There's an executive chef. It is very intense. And it's the most intentional and highest end brain upgrade program in the world. When you read Heavily Meditated, I'm giving you the crown jewel process that we developed. And it's just in the book. Because what all the meditation things I've learned everywhere on the planet, they all say the same basic thing.
I would like to thank our sponsor, Roar Lion's Mane. I actually learned about Lion's Mane from Dave Asprey. He talked about how Lion's Mane improves sleep and increases vivid dreams. I got some Lion's Mane, and within 2 weeks, I noticed it improved my sleep. I've struggled with sleep for years because of my ADHD. This helped me sleep better and fall asleep faster, and I've had vivid dreams since then. This is about 5 years ago. Since then, I found my own Lion's Mane. I now make my own Lion's Mane supplement that's not only Lion's Mane, but it's a combination of 10 medicinal mushrooms that are really great at improving memory, reducing stress and anxiety, improving brain health, and improving sleep. And right now, when you get my Lion's Mane, you get a free physical copy of Dave Asprey's new book. This is a $28 value. Yours absolutely free when you try my Lion's Mane risk-free, because it comes to unconditional 6-month unconditional money-back guarantee. So to try my Lion's Mane risk-free and get a free physical copy of Dave Asprey's book, $28 value, go to robertlove.net and click the link that says Roar Lion's Mane to get yours while supplies last.
Sit or lay down or get whatever special position, put your hands in this special mudra. You can pick whichever mudra is right for your thing. If you don't know what a mudra is, they say, well, put your hands in a position that has special power. And actually mudras work. The thing is, that's not going to do it. Then they tell you to sit down and concentrate or not concentrate, do something. And then they all say the same thing. Notice the feelings that come in, the negative feelings, the thoughts. Gently set them aside. You are not your feelings. Okay. They're correct. You are not your feelings. The problem is you have a life. You only have so much time to meditate every day. And you could sit there for 40 years, for an hour a day, noticing the feelings and gently setting them aside. And eventually they'll sort of calm down. I am too impatient for that. But it's not a kind of like angsty impatience. It's a moral obligation to be in charge of myself so that I can achieve my mission and I can be more kind to other people and to myself. So what if instead of noticing all the feelings, you found out why they were happening and turned it off at the source? Imagine this. You take your phone and you turn on every app that wants to alert you.
Okay, no,
turn them all on. Blink, blink, blink. And that's okay. Just notice the alerts and gently set them aside and focus on your email. Dude, you can do it. It just sucks. So why do they tell you in meditation from all over the planet to just deal with the alerts instead of going in and saying, go into the system control panel or the system settings and flip this switch and this switch and this switch so you only have the alerts that are useful? That is why I wrote Heavily Meditated, because I spent 25 years, I spent 6 months of my life with electrodes glued to my head, and I've gone all over the place. There's a new model for how we process reality, and there's a specific step-by-step, 8-step instruction in Heavily Meditated for how to turn off anything that triggers you so it never triggers you again, so you never have to set that emotion aside and just gently notice it. Dude, turn it off. If it doesn't serve you, don't let your nervous system do that anymore, because it will make you old.
Yeah, I love that. I've gotten the message multiple times that stress is not good for us. And so, Jesus talks about, see how I clothe, see the birds of the air, how God provides for them, see the flowers, see how God clothes them. Imagine how much I care for you. So why would you stress about your food and your clothing? And then biologically speaking, same deal. When you look at stress, it's just bad for you. It just ages you. And I just learned this from Good Energy by Casey and Callie Means.
Oh, yeah.
They talk about how stress, cortisol, increases sugar in the bloodstream because it's preparing you to run. Well, now stress is not because we need to run from a predator. Stress is now because someone posted something that we don't like on social media, and someone from a different political party has a different opinion than us. And now all of a sudden our cortisol spikes. Now we got blood sugar spike, and now we got inflammation and all these things that are aging us. I totally agree with you. That one thing I'm working on this year for my personal development is lowering my stress just day to day, because it's not necessary. I live a beautiful life. The world is safe. People, generally speaking, are nice, lovely people who want what's best in the world if you actually talk to them about their values. And stress is absolutely just a killer. It's a big killer. Dave, in the book, you say there's an operating system inside the brain. What do you mean by that?
Back when people watched live TV, it was never live because there's an 8-second window in case someone drops an F-bomb or there's a wardrobe malfunction. So there's a censorship window. And we all believe, because it's what we see, that if I clap my hands, it takes some amount of time for the signal to get to your ears and then you hear it. That is a lie. Because if we're measuring your auditory cortex, it does not get any electrical signal from the sound until 1/3 of a second has passed. It's called P300D is how we measure that with electrodes. If you're young, it might be 1/4 second. If you're 25 or older, it's going to be about 350 milliseconds. So we've established there is a window that has been erased from our consciousness when your body gets to fuck with your reality. And wait, what? Really? Yeah, that's real. Oh, and there's another 700 milliseconds after your body processes the signal, and then it goes to your prefrontal cortex. And then you think about it and recognize it. So there's really about a 1-second lag time where stuff can happen before you know about it, but we know for sure there's 1/3 of a second. Okay, point 1. There is invisible stuff happening between you and reality, and we can prove it. Well, what's happening there and who's in charge? If you lean on a hot stove, has anyone ever said, it's really hot, I think I should move my hand? What happens is your hand moves itself, and then you take credit for your hand and you think it's you. Good thing I moved my hand. Dude, you didn't move your hand. Your hand magically moved itself because something else was in charge of your meat.
Sure was.
It's your meat operating system. It's designed to keep your body alive the same way all life on Earth is alive. It works inside a single cell bacteria. By the way, you're built out of those. It's called mitochondria. It works inside a tree. It works inside a forest. It works inside a slime mold or a politician. It's same kind of thing there. But like, no matter what.
That's really good.
There's an operating system for life. So what is life doing and what do your cells do as a distributed consciousness inside the body? By the way, some people would call this the ego. I'm just telling you what makes the ego happen. It's a distributed decision-making network, distributed consciousness between mitochondria. And it gets to sense reality first. And it's what runs your neurons. It's what runs everything in your body. It's what makes inflammatory signaling molecules. It's what makes light inside the body. It's what makes electricity inside the body. Like it's the puppet master. So operating system for life. It's all F words. You're going to like this. This is just at the core of heavily meditated. Number 1 is fear. If something is scary, run away from, kill, or hide from it. Bacteria can move or they can make toxins, like they can kill or hide, all this kind of stuff. So can trees. They grow spikes or poisons in their bark and leaves. And humans, we punch you in the face. Okay? So fear. In humans, this gets 9 times more energy than anything else. Unless you meditate, then it's probably 6 times more. This is very helpful so that a tiger doesn't eat you and you don't fall off a cliff. So awareness of fear comes first before anything. The second F word is food, because famine has killed everything. So 1/3 of the people, or sorry, 1/3 of the thoughts in people every single day are about tacos or Funyuns or whatever you like. Literally, your body is constantly telling you, think about food, think about food, think about food. So fear, then food. The next F word, all life has to do it to stay around for multiple generations. Can you imagine that one?
I got a couple F words for that one.
What are you thinking?
I thought fornication.
Dude, I was thinking fertility, but okay. You can just go straight to the act if that's where your mind is. Robert, that's your name is Dr. Love. I mean, I see why you went there. Okay.
I'm highly motivated by sex. I'm definitely very biologically driven for sure.
Well, it's for sure. I'm going to argue that you're not. I'm going to argue that your body is highly motivated by sex, and it makes you think that you're your body, and it feeds you that motivation via dopamine to manipulate you into having babies. So check this out. All F words: fear, food, the other F word. Is there anything you've ever done that you're ashamed of that wasn't one of those 3 things?
There's some things that I've done when I've been highly intoxicated on alcohol. That
like
I think
what?
I'm sure I did. I'm sure I said and did some things that kind of I probably blacked out. I was in college that were probably around fertility.
They're probably around fertility
or status, which is probably about fertility, right? If I'm making fun of someone, it's to gain status so I can be more attractive to the opposite sex.
It's either for safety because you're afraid, or if it's I'm not good enough, or if it's showing off like a peacock. That's where that stuff comes from. So it's kind of funny. All the things we do that we're ashamed of come from mitochondrial imperatives to keep all life alive.
That's interesting.
The mistake is that we think that we are our body and that we chose to do those things. Those things provably happen before you decide to do them. And then you tell yourself a story about why you decided to do them. And understanding this frees up so much mental framework, because now what you're dealing with is a separate consciousness that's basically like a big Labrador retriever bouncing around inside your meat. And it's choosing reality for you.
I would like to thank our sponsor, Microingredients. All of Microingredients products are third-party tested, so you know they are the highest quality. I've been using Microingredients products for the past 2 years before they were sponsored the show because they are so high quality. They have a great collagen supplement. This helps reduce wrinkles. Great for your skin, hair, and nails. MCT oil is great for your brain. I love to add this to my coffee. Collagen's also good in the coffee. The organic blueberry mix, I add that to my smoothies and desserts. Their new curcumin supplement is excellent. MCT oil is one of my favorites. It stands for medium chain triglyceride oil. This is basically coconut oil on steroids. When you add this to your coffee, it basically replaces dairy in your coffee. That's really good for you. And the MCT oil becomes energy for your brain. And so people notice an improvement in memory. They notice improvement in brain fog. Research in patients with Alzheimer's disease who take MCT oil, it improves their memory. Dr. Dale Bredesen, who wrote the book, The End of Alzheimer's, recommends 3 tablespoons of MCT oil a day. Don't start there. Start smaller and then work up. If you take too much, you can get disaster pants. This is my favorite MCT oil. Let me tell you why. Number 1, USDA organic coconuts, very important. Number 2, it is third-party tested like all Microingredients products. Number 3, it's a powder. So the powder is more gentle on your stomach than the MCT oil liquid. So this is great. And then lastly, it has prebiotic fiber. So it feeds your good gut bacteria. If you'd like to try some of Microingredients MCT oil, go to Amazon and then search MCT oil and then use the code RobertLove at checkout to save 10%.
We've all seen the dog that comes in, it knocks the vase off the table with its tail, it pees on the couch, it barks at everyone, and then drools on you and humps your leg. Okay? That's the average person's ego. So what should you do? You could take your dog and take it to obedience school, and they have a service dog. And it'll sit there in the corner, you put a piece of popcorn on its nose, and it sits there until you tell it can eat. You get to choose which operating system you have in your body. Heavily meditated is every technique and technology there is to train your operating system to go into altered states that give you superpowers, because that's where they come from. And the number one thing that's most important is understand healing is an altered state, and changing your reality is an altered state. You're not changing reality by changing things outside of you. You're changing reality by changing things inside you. And there are some things that work much better or don't work as well to do that. And meditation, 40 years, it'll reliably work. Or give me 5 days with tech. Same thing.
That's such a big idea. I really want to focus on this because I want to make sure it lands for people. So I'm thinking of prayer also when this happens. So when you change your perspective, you're actually not changing the outside world around you. You're changing internally yourself, and that changed things. I think it was Wayne Dyer who said, you know, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that's true on a subatomic level. Depending on how you look at things, the molecules look different, or the particles look different. And then prayer, I forget where I read this. It might have been Matthew Kelly. You know, why do we pray? We pray to ask God for things, but we're also praying to the prayer actually changes us, right? So when we pray, it's not just, you know, some magical power does things for us. Maybe that's how it works, but in part, we are changed by our prayers, by the intentions that we set.
At least we think that we change. And we can prove, if we get into quantum physics, biocentrism, advanced theories of consciousness and reality, there's a pretty good case that the world that we perceive around us only exists because we perceive it. And I know that's a bit of a mindfuck for people, but that is how reality works if you use math and physics. Our bodies create a user interface on reality that's fit to keep us alive. And that's why we don't see X-rays or infrared, because we didn't need to, but we could have. And that's why we perceive time. We made it up because it's very useful for keeping our species alive, but time provably doesn't exist. The matter we think we have around us, it doesn't exist either. Energy equals matter times the speed of light squared. Everything is energy. We just aren't going to see it that way. And it's very useful to perceive this is a microphone. I'm clicking on it right now, right? Because we both agree it's a microphone, but that's not how it really works. So your job is to tune your operating system to show you the best picture of reality to help you thrive in the world. And I mentioned the first 3 F words, fear, food, fucking. Well, there's 2 more F words that are part of the framework for life. And the third framework, or the fourth one in the framework, is friend. All life on Earth will support its own species and those around us. We build healthy ecosystems automatically and without thinking. So that means you have the ability to turn fear into the opposite of fear. What do you think the opposite of fear is?
Let's say calm, relaxation, trust, relax.
It's funny. Most of us don't have a clear thought, or a lot of people say love. After a lot of work and talking with a lot of different experts about this, I believe it's peace. So if you're not afraid, you can be at peace. And from a state of peace, you can have trust, you can have love and all that. Peace appears to be foundational. So turn fear into peace, and the amount of energy that goes into fear is nothing. Oh, I have all my energy left. Let's look at the next one, food. You learn how to feel safe with an empty stomach. It's called intermittent fasting. And you can learn how to eat. And now you turn hunger into nourishment. Okay, now you haven't wasted any energy on that. And now you come to the next F word. One of the chapters in Heavily Meditated is about the fact that 20% of people report meeting God during orgasm at least once in their life. But they don't usually tell their partner. They might be saying something like, oh God, oh God. But other than that, you're not going to know. Right? And they just lay there and twitch, but they're having profound altered states, healing experiences. And so why do we not talk about tantric sex or conscious kink in the same breath as breathwork or psychedelics or meditation? Because they're all deserving of a place on the map of technologies that change and upgrade our consciousness.
I would like to thank our sponsor, IQ Coffee. I've been drinking IQ Coffee for the last 2 years. This is the most powerful coffee I've ever had as far as reducing brain fog, improving focus, memory, and attention. This is really powerful. I'd like to add a scoop of this or 2 scoops of this to my regular coffee in the coffee maker on days where I really want to get a lot of work done. This is filled with nootropic ingredients that increase dopamine and acetylcholine, help with memory, and you can try this risk-free. So to try some IQ Coffee risk-free, go to robertlove.net, click the link that says IQ Coffee, and give this a try. Can we talk more about tantric sex? I had a note about that. I think that's a fantastic thing. I'd love to hear more about.
You can look at sex as just getting an urgent need met, but there's abundant biological evidence that more sex, and for men, less ejaculation, changes your hormones and your dopamine to make them more performant and better, just for everything in your life. And more intimacy raises oxytocin. And with proper breathwork awareness and basically meditation practices designed in the world of Tantra or conscious kink, which is kind of an offshoot of Tantra, it's well documented that when a man and a woman are together, there are energy flows that happen that can really be as strong as psychedelics. And I've taken courses in these things and I've learned how to do it. And it's pretty profound what can happen when you work with a partner who you trust. And the whole point of these things is to shift out of a state of lust and out of a state of kind of porn and OnlyFans obsession into a state of profound connectedness. And that can be as powerful as any psychedelic that you can imagine. And it just takes trust. It takes surrender, which is also how you have a good trip versus a harsh trip on psychedelics. And it takes knowledge of the techniques. So I write about that in Heavily Meditated. And it's one of the chapters in the book. And it's just acknowledging what is the set of things that are going to put you in these states. And one of the states we want flow. We want focus. We want healing. We want intuition. We want creativity. We want connectedness. These are different altered states for doing different things. So you're not going to go into like a dreamy, kind of creative theta state if you want to drive a race car. Driving a race car is a very focused, present state. But you don't want to be in a stressed over beta state because you need to be able to mix in some of these other things like an alpha brainwave state. So learning how to manipulate your states using tools, techniques, and consciousness, that's the game of being human. And that's why Heavily Meditated, it is a book unlike any other, because I don't care if you want to meditate. In fact, I would encourage you to hurry, meditate faster, or better yet, do some breath work. Do breath work with meditation, or call up your partner and say, you know what, let's go to YouTube and let's find a tantra thing and let's do that tonight. Do it instead of getting drunk. Like, you're going
way
to
better than getting drunk.
something.
Oh my gosh, that knocks you 2 steps back.
Totally. So these are out there. And there's something else that's new to the world of biohacking that I think you're going to love in Heavily Meditated. It's a new technique called BICEP. And it's not this kind of bicep. It's brief, intentional, conscious exposure to pain. And it's funny, monks in the 15th century used to like flagellate, they would whip themselves. And yogis would lay on a bed of nails. And this used to traumatize me in middle school. I'm like, the monks hate themselves. That's why they're whipping themselves. And the yogis, they just want to prove they're good yogis. No, they're doing the same thing. Same reason that biohackers like me get in cold plunges. Same reason Texans also like me eat really spicy jalapenos. Because you do, or maybe you just need a good spanking. It's all the same thing. In fact, the title of the chapter is Go Spank Yourself. But here's what happens. When something hurts that you choose to do for a very brief period, it resets your dopamine sensitivity for the rest of the day. So it takes up to 250% less dopamine for you to feel motivated. So the monks were self-flagellating, so it would take less willpower to meditate. And if you sit in the ice bath or do any of those practices, I'm not judging, and then it resets your dopamine signaling, it works. In fact, this is why you'll see people who are recovered from addiction covered in tattoos and piercings, because the pain of the tattoo resets their dopamine sensitivity, right? So they're just working to regulate their willpower and cravings via dopamine. So understanding this, it's a valid technique. So let's talk about that. And the book is just studded with things, including a lot about neurofeedback, breath work, light and sound, running electricity over the brain. It's the full everything. And I tell all the stories about how I know it works, why we know it works, how it works, and it's a fun read.
If you or someone you love has Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, I want you to know there is hope. Alzheimer's is preventable and it is even reversible. In fact, we are reversing Alzheimer's in my medical clinic here in Florida. My partner and medical director is Dr. Josh Hellman, a medical doctor trained at Harvard who specializes in preventing and reversing Alzheimer's disease, and we are reversing Alzheimer's in our patients. If you'd like to learn more about working with us to both prevent Alzheimer's and even reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with other forms of dementia, we would love to hear from you and send you some free information so you can learn what we are doing and see if it's a fit for you to come down and work with us in our clinic. We also work with other clinics around the country to help patients both prevent Alzheimer's as well as to reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with dementia. So if you'd like to learn more, go to brainpowerclinics.com. Go to brainpowerclinics.com and then enter your information. We will send you some free information, and then we hope to work with you, if we can be helpful to you, to help you prevent and reverse Alzheimer's disease.
I love how you do that in your books, because I love how practical they are, because I read your books and I'm underlying things. I'm saying, try this, try this, try this. And I do the things like Aniracetam, like cold plunge, like sauna. I'm like, wow, I feel so much better. By the way, I did a cold plunge about an hour before we start our interview here. I wanted to be sharp and feeling really good. What slows the brain down? You mentioned alcohol. In the last couple of years, I recently let go of alcohol and I feel so much better. What are some things that slow the brain down? And what are some actions people can take to keep their brain in an optimal state?
I'm assuming you mean slow it down in a negative way?
Yes.
Okay, just to make sure. So look at the brain as having a finite amount of energy. And you can, if everything is working right inside your mitochondria, you get 100 energy credits. Well, half of people under age 40 have mitochondrial dysfunction, and everyone over age 40 has it. We just call it aging, unless you've done something to hack it. So number one, what slows your brain down? You're not making enough electricity from air and food. Maybe you should fix your metabolism. But that's not what Heavily Meditated is about. I've written a couple other books about that are New York Times, big bestsellers, millions of copies, all that stuff. So read Headstrong if you want to do that, or Superhuman. But when it comes to this aspect, step one is, how much energy do I have? And then how much did I waste on fear that didn't serve me? And then how much did I waste on hunger that didn't serve me? And then how much did I waste on lust that didn't serve me? And then how much did I waste on my lack of community, my loneliness, versus spending it on the community that then nourishes you in return? So what really slows you down is you're wasting energy. And you're wasting energy because your mitochondrial networks and your nervous system are programmed to behave like a savage instead of like a service dog. So make more energy by fixing your health, understand circadian rhythm, and then allocate the energy so it doesn't go into fear, so it doesn't go into hunger, so it doesn't go into loneliness. And what's left is service to others, and the final F word is forgiveness. And that's what's at the base of the reset process. Forgiveness is not telling someone that you forgive them, and it is not saying that what they did was okay. Forgiveness is not even a thought. Forgiveness is an altered state. Most people feel it in their chest. And I've tested this on 1,000 people, 5 days at a time with hundreds and hundreds, actually billions of data points from their brains. And forgiveness is a shift in your energetic state, your spiritual state, your emotional state that is reflected in your brainwaves. And when you make that shift, that has nothing to do with thinking and everything to do with feeling, your body will no longer be triggered. So imagine you were afraid of heights. And then you did something and you went to the same thing that scared you a minute ago, and you have no waver in your body at all. I'm not talking about courage. I'm talking about, it doesn't bother me anymore. Well, you can do that. When someone cuts you off in traffic, it pisses you off today, you can run the reset process and you just don't care. And then your mother-in-law criticizes you. Okay. You ruins your whole week. Or you run the reset process, you just don't care. Oh yeah, look, she's criticizing me. Trolls online, they're my favorite. I love the trolls after doing the reset process. I'm like, oh my God, they're all stuck in like 12-year-old stuff. And I have so much fun. Like, somebody just commented on one of my posts about Bobby Kennedy. They're like, Bobby, Gary, and Dave teaming up for Super Grift. I could have been very offended. Or I'm like, oh my God, we get to play 12-year-old. So here's my response. We also teamed up with your mom. Like, I'm not offended. I'm like, we get to play. Trolls are my favorite, right? Because they don't hurt you anymore because it doesn't trigger me.
No.
And by the way, the person responded and just with a laughing icon said, okay, Dave, like it diffused it because you point out the absurdity, right?
Perfect.
So anything that's a trigger in your life, and I've done this process with people who have been tortured in war, people who have had early childhood issues, all this stuff. Granted, they're with my team of facilitators. We've got electrodes on their head and we're going deep. Like it's the equivalent of a medicine journey, and it's profound. And I share some of those stories in the book, including some that are just like profoundly touching. One woman who's in her late 70s or early 80s, and she shared this publicly so I can share it. Her parents conceived her right after getting out of a concentration camp.
Goodness.
And the family trauma from that can be just so, so profound. And she said, I have been searching my entire life for peace and I never felt it. And I just found it. And it took 5 days and it was based on the reset process, which is a step-by-step. Here's how to unlock forgiveness and how to go in and turn off a state. So I've seen people heal lifetimes of trauma in 5 days doing this at 40 years of Zen. I'm like, but how do I scale a $20,000 program? It's the world's first, it's optional, but it's the world's first psychedelic assisted neurofeedback facility in the world. And that we use ketamine under a doctor's care so that people can use that for neuroplasticity. Now, how do I scale that for everyone? I'm like, let me give away the most precious thing I've ever discovered, the thing I've done on my own brain so I can run all these companies and write all these books and just be present. I want everyone to have this because that fourth F word friend, we are wired in our bones to be kind to each other. You don't have to decide to be kind. You just have to not be afraid, not be hungry, and you need to have intimate connection in your life. If you can just get those 3 things done, you don't have to think. You'll help the little old lady across the street. It doesn't even take effort because it's automatic, just like eating tacos.
That's so beautiful. Dave, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the work that you've done. I mean, you've seriously impacted my life in a very positive way, and I've tried to share what you've taught throughout my social media channels and helping people live happier, healthier lives. And I love that you're like the giving tree. You said, look, I do this thing and I've learned this stuff, and now I'm going to put it in a book, and you can have it for $30. You can have $10,000 of information for $30, and I hope you use it to live a better life. So Dave, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for the work in the world. And then for everyone watching, I highly recommend getting Dave's new book. Get all of Dave's book. I got a couple right here. I got Game Changers, Fast This Way. I'd love to talk to you about fasting because I love that. I now fast with coffee and MCT oil, and that works really well. So you
Totally works.
so much to the knowledge base of health and wellness. So definitely get the new book and get all of Dave's book because they're totally worth it. Bring your pen and underline it. And Dave, thank you so much. God bless you.
You got it. Thank you, brother. And I appreciate your support on Heavily Meditated.
Thank you so much.